I am Iron Man. You think you're the only superhero in the world? Mr. Stark, you become part of a bigger universe. You just don't know it yet.
Who the hell are you?
Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh.
I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Weekly Reel podcast. My name is Jeremy.
And my name is Ken.
On this episode of the Weekly Reel, we'll be talking about the first three Marvel movies in its cinematic universe: Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, and Iron Man 2. But before that, Ken, how are you doing, man?
Oh man, it's been a whirlwind actually. To be honest with you, still busy with work. With the whole COVID thing, been working from home the last 4+ months, but it's just been pretty crazy at work. But more than anything, like my free time is now locked in with the podcast. I've been really busy with the podcast. This is actually the most that I've been active on social media in like 7 to 8 years. It's or more. So it's just kind of an adjustment to just kind of getting back into the whole groove and of doing social media, and then obviously advertising for this brand new podcast that we do have here. So how have you been, Jeremy?
Dude, honestly, like this past week it's been pretty crazy. One thing crazy happened actually last Thursday night. A stray cat was on my front door, and right now we are recording. A few days later, the cat's now in my backyard, and we've been giving it food.
Oh, that's weird. Are you taking like pictures or video? And
Yeah, I'll definitely send you some, man.
there you go.
I texted it to Dino, one of our friends.
Okay.
And he's like, "Yeah, let me visit, bro." I'm like, "Dude, COVID." I'm like, "You can't come over." He's like, let me say hi to the cat. It's so cute." I'm like, "It is," but I'll definitely send you pictures.
All right, sounds good.
We'll see if hopefully it doesn't have any diseases.
Yeah, hopefully not. Yeah, that's not good, especially in these times. There's like new diseases like popping up in different random parts of the world. It seems like every other week, right?
Yeah, seriously, who knows? The cat virus next.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's pretty crazy because it just was on my front door meowing, and it's like ever since then it's kind of been like a pet. Honestly, it acts like a dog. That's the
Really?
best kind of cat, I guess.
So it's a little bit more clingy.
Yeah, it's a lot more friendly. It doesn't like scratch you or knock your stuff over. At least not yet. At least.
Oh, interesting. Is it more of an older cat or?
Yeah, it seems a little bit older. Hopefully not too old, but I guess we'll see whenever we bring it to the vet.
Well, there you go. Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice. Did you give it a name already?
I'm trying not to get too attached. I've thought of some names. I think it's a girl, so we'll see. I'll update the audience on my cat adventures as we keep going.
Here's a suggestion, just for me. Just name the cat Kit. You'd be Kit Cat. Just kidding. Dad jokes are on this podcast. FYI.
The best joke sometimes, and really good chocolate.
Yeah, I agree.
But here on the Weekly Reel, we do have a weekly tradition to talk about one notable thing that we watched the last 7 days. So, Ken, is there anything notable that you've watched in the last 7 days?
Yeah, since we recorded episode 1, the one movie that I did want to share for this episode is I rewatched for the first time in many, many years, probably decades, Karate Kid Part 1.
No way.
It is so good. I mean, I remember certain parts, but there was a lot of the movie that I did forget. And so I was having a conversation at work, and we were talking about Karate Kid Part 1. actually just like the trilogy itself. I might eventually watch part 2 and part 3 because they're all out on Netflix. But I ended up watching the first one a couple of days ago, and I just, oh man, it's so 80s. The whole movie is so 80s, from like the style and everything, even the way it's like edited and cut. It's so 80s. And there's like certain things that I just completely forgot about the movie. I forgot from the point where I don't know if this is a spoiler because it's a movie that came out in 1984, but from the time when they issued the challenge to get into the karate tournament, I completely forgot that Daniel only trained for 2 months and he beat all those black belts. So like, it's not really realistic, but I just felt it was funny. And the last thing I wanted to mention about Karate Kid, especially during the tournament itself, because obviously Cobra Kai is like just featured prominently in part 1. I just completely forgot that like pretty much everyone in Cobra Kai looks like Luke Skywalker from A New Hope.
Dude, that's totally accurate comparison.
It's so good. I was like, dude, that guy looks like Mark Hamill. Oh, that guy looks like Mark Hamill.
They should have just had Mark Hamill in it.
I know, seriously. But I think he would have been coming off of Return of the Jedi, in 1984. So I just thought it was good times, and it just rekindled my my huge crush that I used to have on Elizabeth Shue. Oh man, she was so cute in that movie. But are you
going to see the next or the Cobra Kai TV show? I think they're about to hit
this is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to, because I completely missed it when it was on. It was a YouTube original, right?
Yeah, it was YouTube original. Then it's now moving to Netflix.
Right. And so I wanted to kind of get into that whole thing, do part 1, part 2, part 3. I don't know if I'll get into the remakes, like with Hilary Swank and wait, who is it? Is it Will Smith's kid? No.
Yeah. Jaden. I didn't know.
It was
it was Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan, wasn't it?
Well, no, there was 2 remakes.
There was 2.
Yeah. Yeah, Hilary Swank had one, and I think Pat Morita was in it. And so correct us if I'm wrong on this, but yeah, they came out with a movie probably like in the 90s or whatever. This is before Hilary Swank blew up, with her Oscar buzz. And then they had that movie with Jaden Smith. Mm-hmm. So it was another remake. So I don't know if I'll get into those 2. We'll see, but definitely we'll go through the original trilogy and then hopefully segue that into Cobra Kai. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Nice.
Yeah. So Jeremy, what have you watched the last 7 days?
Yeah, well, I've been watching a TV show on Netflix. Dude, we keep watching on the same platforms. Netflix.
I know, HBO Max last week.
Now it's Netflix this week. Who's it going to be next week? But yeah, I've been watching a Netflix show, Luke Cage.
Oh man,
Cage,
so good.
And yeah, because I watched the first season a long time ago when it came out, I think 2016. So when the second season came out, I did watch like the first episode of the second season, but now and then I never really got back into it until just now. I don't, for some whatever reason. Unfortunately, it did get canceled along with all the other MCU, Netflix, Marvel shows. Right. But yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. And it's kind of crazy how relevant that I guess that character and that show is still. Because I remember when they were advertising the show, it's a bulletproof black guy in a hoodie. Mm-hmm. So it's very much still a relevant and very relevant show now.
Oh yeah, for sure. I remember Mike Coulter was so good in the first season. I've actually only seen the first season. I have been meaning to get into this to watch the second season. So if you do get there, let me know if it's worth watching and jumping right back into it, because I kind of fell behind in the Netflix MCU universe. I don't know if there's an official name.
MCU. Yeah. So yeah. Honestly, yeah, because I've gone to the second season. I just wish that there was more Luke Cage. Sometimes there like some episodes like this is called Luke Cage. Let's focus on Luke Cage a little bit more. Because like you said, Mike Coulter is so good as Luke Cage.
Yeah, I just remember how good Cottonmouth was, and the fact that he's now going to be Blade, right?
Yeah, he's Blade.
He's going to be Blade.
Oh man, and there's like no progress on or no development on that yet from last when they announced it. Unfortunately,
From was it? It was last year Comic-Con, right? 2019 when they announced all of that stuff.
I think so.
Oh.
Right
Yes.
after it had to be after Endgame.
Yeah, it was definitely. It's been depressing this year in terms of like obviously new content stuff that we were looking forward to. So, but something that we got to deal with, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely looking forward to those TV shows and movies on Disney Plus whenever they come out.
I agree.
But a couple weeks ago, Ken, we did talk about a personality test in our prologue episode. A test, that compares your personality to characters in pop culture. And, we actually got some people that sent their results to us. And I'm trying to see, did someone send their results last minute? I guess not. My friend just didn't want to send it, I guess. But Ken, they sent you a couple results, didn't they?
Yes, we got a couple in our inbox, and actually, this first one comes from a Mary Samsonite from Aspen, California, and so she, I just thought it was very relevant to especially last week's episode. Mary Samsonite from Aspen, California, shared these 3 notable characters. The first one on her list. The top one on her list was Eric Foreman from That 70s Show at 84%. So the second character that she does share is Steve Brady from Sex and the City at 77%. And the last character is Chandler Bing from Friends. And
No way.
yeah. So, I mean, and it's funny too, because she's a huge Friends. She's a huge Friends fanatic, according to the email that she had sent in. And so the other listener that we did get feedback from was from Jackie in Daly City. She shared one of her top ones as Jules. I don't know have you watched Superbad? It's a comedy that came out in probably like the late aughts.
Yeah. I don't remember who is Jules. Emma Stone.
Jules is Emma Stone. I was actually going to ask if you remembered. Well, yes, Jules was played by Emma Stone, and that came in at 88%. The second character that Jackie shared was Forrest Gump from the movie Forrest Gump, and that was
Lieutenant Dan.
with Lieutenant Dan, because life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what percentage you're going to get, but in this case, it is 85%. And then the last character that she shared was a character named Jack Pearson from a show that she let us know that she's a huge fan of. This Is Us. It's an NBC show, and so Jack Pearson came in at 81%. And so those were kind of the notable ones that we did get in our inbox, and so. Please stay tuned. I mean, we're gonna have like these episodes where we're gonna try to engage, you guys, the listeners. And so, if you have any strong feelings towards any of the questions that we do ask moving forward, feel free to send in your answers to our Twitter account. And you can follow that at Weekly Reel, and you can also send in your emails to weeklyreelpod@gmail.com. And so, just stay tuned. We're always going to have these questions so that we can kind of interact with you guys. And I mean, because that's who we're doing this for, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. We're here to have a conversation about movies, and that's why we love talking with all you folks. But today we're going to be talking about one of our favorite movie series. Basically, however movies they have now, we love the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, So we decided to go all the way back to the beginning and talk about the first 3 movies. So Ken, how do you feel about these movies overall? What were your impressions of these first 3 movies?
Oh man, you know what? I'm actually going to take it back to my first interactions with all 3. I remember I was actually I was late to the party for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I actually didn't even know that there was a Marvel Cinematic Universe. I really didn't like keep up with it. Uh, More of a casual superhero fan, and wasn't really into Marvel back in 2008, other than watching a lot of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, all 3, including the last one with emo Spider-Man. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, I was really late to these, and so I ended up watching the first Iron Man on my Netflix DVD plan.
Nice.
Yeah, so I ended up getting it via DVD, and wasn't HD, but it was still really good. And as soon as I watched it, I knew it was one of those movies where it was just going to be one of the most rewatchable movies for me of all time. And so it's definitely one of my favorite movies. And then with The Incredible Hulk, I remember watching that for the first time, just kind of on a whim. I ended up watching that because I remember Ang Lee's Hulk a few years past. And during this time, I think I still had Comcast. So I just watched it on demand. So I just saw it. I was like, saw it was available with whatever plan I had at the time, click play, and I just watched it just because I was, I've always liked Ed Norton. And then as for Iron Man 2, I think this one, it was kind of strange because I couldn't wait for Netflix or couldn't wait until it was on demand with Comcast. And so I ended up I think I remember torrenting Iron Man 2. And I forget what language the subtitles were, but
just incriminated yourself.
So it might have been Korean or something. I don't know. I didn't recognize the characters of some of the subtitles, but I ended up turning it off, and so I was able to get through the movie and watch Iron Man 2. How about you, Jeremy?
Well, dude, Iron Man, like you, I actually owned the DVD. I had one of the DVDs where it was like almost like a holographic case in the front. Dude, I watched that DVD so many times, and it had like behind the scenes of like all the suits. I was so like enamored with the Iron Man design that I think I even picked up like this. I don't know, because I was 12 years old or something like that. I picked up like this 3-pack of Iron Man suits for like these little action figures of the Mark 1, Mark 2, and Mark 3. I'm like, dude,
Really?
this is such a good movie. And yeah, if you ever go back to like the old videos of my YouTube channel, you can see me review those figures. It's pretty crazy.
Man, I might do that after you record.
Well, don't do that.
Hey, do you know where those Iron Man suits are now?
I must have sold a couple of them, I think. Yeah, but I don't.
It wouldn't fit
really
anyway. So
yeah, it's whatever. Iron Man is like the MCU's first movie, but I believe it's still one of its best. It set the foundation basically for this whole cinematic universe that lasts how many years is it? Like 15 years now? Almost 15 years?
No, it's 12 and counting.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Yeah.
Dude. Such a long time and such a huge cinematic universe. And then it followed up with The Incredible Hulk. So rewatching it this time, it's not as bad as everyone thinks it is. I think it's kind of like the black sheep of the MCU. I remember
that's the perfect description for sure.
Yeah, it's like when we talk about the MCU, no one really mentions the Incredible Hulk. And when talking with one of our friends, he's like, "Oh, you're watching the Incredible Hulk again? I haven't seen that movie since it came out." I'm like, "Oh yeah, again, that's what it's known for, basically not being very rewatchable." And but I was pretty surprised rewatching it. I can see why some people wouldn't like it, Personally, I think it's pretty entertaining for the most part, it's not one I'm like clamoring to watch again.
Yeah.
The beginning is very Jason Bourne-esque.
Yes. Oh, with the
Which is-
montage.
Yeah, exactly. Dude. And just running off the rooftops in Brazil. Was it Brazil, right?
Yeah, it was Brazil.
And which is funny because Edward Norton was in the CIA in one of the Bourne movies. I'm trying to remember. Was it Jason Bourne?
Was it the last one?
No, it was that was Alicia Vikander. It was the Jeremy Renner one, Bourne Legacy.
Yeah. See, that's why I don't know, because I never watched that one still.
Oh yeah,
I
shoot.
still haven't watched that one.
So Hulk and Hawkeye actually had a crossover after the Avengers. So
That's funny.
I just thought that was funny. But we'll talk about Edward Norton's Hulk in just a bit. But Iron Man 2, I think it had big shoes to fill after the first Iron Man. Sheesh.
I agree.
My biggest complaint, I think, with Iron Man 2 is the story seems to stop every time like it wants to set up the Avengers. Like Nick Fury, obviously he just like stops by his house at one point and the story just like stalls. I'm like, I can see what they're trying to do. They're really trying to set up the cinematic universe, but that was like probably one of my gripes with Iron Man 2.
It definitely wasn't focused. There was so many things going on, and I agree. I think that's the gripe of a lot of people who watched Iron Man 2 is it just had too many things to tie in just 2 hours. I was actually surprised that it was only 2 hours.
Yeah, and they introduced like Black Widow and all these other characters, and a new Rhodey.
New Rhodey.
It's like he looks a little bit different, but we'll talk about that too later, right? Right,
Yeah,
Ken?
we'll definitely get into that one.
But these movies do vary in quality, but there are great moments in each of them. So, Ken, in your opinion, what are some of the best moments in these movies?
Well, with Iron Man, a couple came to mind. The first scene that I always inevitably mention when I talk about Iron Man, like my fandom towards it, is the very first montage of when Tony's creating the Mark I in the cave. Just the whole, like the lighting, the cinematography is like perfect. The sound design is perfect when he's hammering, on the armor, and it's just really good in the way with the story building and the world building that it does set up. And I mean, they do so many callbacks to that one scene to the most recent MCU movies, especially like in Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man Far From Home. And so it's just such a key pivotal scene, and it just basically shows Tony's transformation of where he was before before he got kidnapped, and just like his transformation while he's in the cave with Yinsen, his assistant. And so we'll definitely get into that later. But yeah, definitely got to mention the montage. The other moment that really, really just pumped me up was when Tony is like just sitting, he's mad, just watching all of this stuff on the news, and the Mark III just gets done, and then he ends up just flying over to Golmira, and then that whole sequence where he basically has that one line after the whole action sequence where he just frees a bunch of civilians, and then he just shows off the new Mark III, like the weapons and everything, and then he just literally throws like the main henchman guy, yeah, he throws them basically to all the people and everything. He's like, he's all yours, and then it ends perfectly when he's flying away, and then he gets hit by that tank shell, and he obviously crash lands or whatever, but then the tank's right there. He fires another shell, he just dodges it, and then all of a sudden, that one iconic shot where he just shoots that one missile and before it even hits, he just walking away, and I was like, oh man, it's so badass.
Yeah,
And
that was
so
sick.
yeah, it's still one of my favorite scenes of all time. Just I just like the overall look, and then just the overall first reveal of the Mark III is just crazy.
Yeah,
How about you, Jeremy? Sorry.
one of my favorite moments in the first Iron Man comes exactly like right after the Gulmira scene, and that's the F-22 Raptors versus Iron Man. Such a thrilling action sequence. Even today, like just watching it again, I'm like, this is nuts. And the first time they ever see, like, oh, it's a man, like when he's hiding under the F-22, and
That's right.
like Rhodey, Terrence Howard, like realize it's Tony in the suit. Such a good action sequence.
It's like, why are you out of breath?
Yeah, why are you out of breath? I was running in the canyon.
I thought you were driving through a tunnel.
It's like, oh, I was driving to the canyon where I'm gonna run.
That's so good.
So, and Iron Man 1 is very quotable as well. But
I agree.
Because the at the end of the F-22 sequence, the freaking joke where it's like, just tell him it was a training exercise. It's like, oh, just the usual BS.
and then it cuts right into Rhodey with a straight face. Well, it was a training accident.
Yeah. But besides that scene, my other favorite scene in Iron Man 1 was the Mark II flight test. Just seeing that very chromed out silver Iron Man suit,
Yes.
very sleek. After the Mark 1, just to see that like coming to the big screen, it's like gave you chills with the music. Ramin Djawadi's music is so good in this movie,
Yes.
and just builds up in that scene. Ooh. And where he flies for the first time, properly flies, I should say, not just falling with the Mark 1. But
Yeah,
that gave me chills.
Yeah, you know what? I think just to add to that, I just thought it was pretty cool because obviously the Mark 1 is, kind of a crude thing. I mean, he was, what's the line? What's the line where he was working with what?
Oh yeah, he was just working with a box of scraps. Jeff Bridges, man.
Right, Jeff Bridges, yes. And so, I mean, you just see the comparison with the Mark 1 where, it's more of a crude design. He was just obviously working with what he was given in the cave. It was definitely functional. He got him out of there. But when you compare like the style between the Mark 1 to the Mark 2, I'm like, oh man, I got chills the first time I saw the Mark 2 as well.
Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, we do have to transition to our favorite movie in the MCU, The Incredible Hulk. We have to talk about the best moments in The Incredible Hulk. So I'll let you go first, Ken.
Now, why don't you go first with this one?
All right. Well, Hulk's appearance for the first time in the soda factory in Brazil was actually really well done when he was like hiding in the shadows, running away from the soldiers from Blonsky, right? That's his name.
Yeah, Blonsky, and like all the other ones.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Just the way they first revealed the Hulk and he just steps out of the shadows, just taking them all out. I feel like they also call back to that in the first Avengers when he's like kind of running around with Black Widow.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, I remember that. And just to kind of add to your point, I think the fact that Bruce Banner's heart rate monitor was kind of going off, I think it adds to the tension. To the scene, and yeah, it definitely is up there for sure for me as well. But go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I thought that was a great use of like knowing when he's going to become the Hulk, like the heart rate monitor. That was a smart device. No pun intended. But yeah, Ken, did you have any best moments in the Hulk?
Oh, so you only had one, huh? That good.
I mean, I gotta save some for you.
That's true, and I appreciate that. Well, I also had that moment as well. But then the other one that really came to my mind that jumped out was that whole campus battle sequence when they're being chased. When it was Bruce with Betty in the campus, and so Bruce is kind of running, and he gets trapped in that little like hallway area with it's like a bridge, right?
Yeah, it
With
was like
windows.
this. Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it, but it's like a bridge, like hallway area. Anyway, the military with Thunderbolt Ross at the helm, like they have like these two guys that shoot with the smoke canisters into that little hallway, and it just fills up with smoke. And so Bruce Banner's still Ed Norton, and then all of a sudden, like when this like smoke kind of like engulfs like the whole area, that's when the Hulk emerges, and then basically just all hell breaks loose right after that. And so I just like that whole action sequence, the use of that sonar technology.
Oh yeah, I thought that was a
That's
good way, kind of slow him down at least.
yeah. It was by Stark Industries, so you get a little bit of the tie-in with the first Iron Man, and then yeah, I mean it was just really good. And then also one random scene that I did like, and this is kind of like I don't know if it's callback. I guess it would be more of a call forward because rewatching this for the first time in a long time, it just reminded me of another scene like later on in the MCU, but near the end of The Incredible Hulk, when they're in the helicopter and all of a sudden Bruce Banner just jumps out of the helicopter, like basically just jumps out with no parachute and then like literally crash lands. It just reminded me of the parody that they did in Thor Ragnarok when Bruce Banner jumps out of the spaceship or whatever and lands on the bridge in Asgard and just plops there. I thought it was just hilarious. And so I don't know, knowing Kevin Feige and all those guys, that was intentional. So
yeah, man.
I just thought it was pretty funny. Just rewatching it I completely forgot that actually happened.
Maybe when he jumped out of the helicopter in the Incredible Hulk, that when he landed, he turned into Mark Ruffalo. He hit the ground so hard, he turned into Mark Ruffalo.
Pretty much. And then he stayed like that for the rest of the other appearances, 4 or 5 after that.
Yeah. But that's definitely a good one, man, because that was a hilarious moment in Thor Ragnarok. And we'll definitely talk about Thor Ragnarok in the future.
Yes, definitely. I'm definitely looking forward to that episode.
So what were your favorite moments in Iron Man 2?
Iron Man 2. Well, I loved the Monaco scene. That part where Tony just decides that he wants to race the Formula 1 car. I think it's Formula 1.
Yeah, can he even do that? Just jump straight into a race? Right.
I guess for the sake of the movie, because he's the owner, I guess so. And I mean, his driver wasn't very happy. But just the fact that they kind of made it like in a recognizable part of the world, and then they had that whole thing, and then that's the main introduction for Whiplash, which is played by Mickey Rourke, Ivan Vanko. And so it was pretty cool to be able to see that first confrontation. And for me, the scene that puts it over the top is when Tony puts on the Mark V armor for the very first time, that suitcase armor for the first time. And it just put that over the top for me. I just kind of marked out, pun intended, when I saw that scene. And the other scene that kind of jumped out at me just on this latest rewatch of Iron Man 2 was the part in the middle of the movie when Tony is trying to figure out a way to basically replace palladium as the key element for his arc reactor technology in his chest because it was killing him. And so Tony's watching old footage of his dad, Howard Stark, and then basically that inspires him to create the new element to replace the palladium. And I just love that whole interaction. It was just really good storytelling, in my opinion. And then the MCU kind of leans on that later on with some of the other movies moving forward. And so I just thought it was really cool. So Jeremy, what were some of the best moments for you for Iron Man 2?
Well, with me, actually, a lot of them involved War Machine. So I think the
Don
fight
Cheadle,
with
MVP.
Don
No, I'm just kidding.
Cheadle, yeah. It has to be the War Machine and Iron Man fight, fighting the drones near the end, where they're like, "Oh, don't stay here. This is the kill box."
Yeah.
And then they just get trapped, and then they have to put down their face masks, and they start just blasting out all the drones. I'm like, dang, that's so cool. And seeing that in the trailer, I'm like, dang, this is gonna be a good movie.
Yep, we were all fooled.
And it's like, dang, that was the best action sequence of the movie. Darn it.
That was really good.
I guess besides the Monaco one. But besides that action sequence, I thought another good moment in Iron Man 2 was when Justin Hammer, when Don Cheadle, the new Rhodey, brings the Iron Man Mark II suit to he's Air Force, the military base.
Yeah, the military base.
They get Justin Hammer to hammer tech it out. And so Justin Hammer just gets this little montage of introducing various weapons for the new War Machine armor, and I thought it was all cool. And it's like, we'll just take it all.
Yeah, it was pretty cool just to see all that weaponry for future War Machine.
And wasn't there a special little device that he introduced them to?
Oh yeah, I actually, thanks for setting that up for me. And it was actually one of my bonus moments that I just loved about it. It was just a really quick moment. Jeremy alluded to earlier in his best moment at the end sequence, and it was when they confront Whiplash with his final armor, and all of a sudden, Rhodey's like, "Oh, don't worry, I got this." Here, and he just wanted to introduce him to the ex-wife, and it literally just sputters and farts at the end. It just did nothing. And I just thought it was just hilarious watching that for the first time, and it was still hilarious to me when I rewatched it. It was definitely one of my favorite moments, even though it's kind of just a random thing that did happen. And they set it up so much during that montage that Jeremy alluded to, and just for that payoff, it was just pretty funny. And I guess it set the tone for future Marvel movies, with comedy being kind of at the forefront, and just kind of that lighthearted feel to a lot of the movies.
Mm-hmm. Like freaking Rhodey's like, I'm gonna bust his bunker with the ex-wife.
There it is. I forgot the quote, but yeah, that's the quote.
Maybe I watched Iron Man 2 too many times.
You're a secret fan.
Oh man, he outed me. So, well, Iron Man has so many suits in the MCU, and apparently he's worn 19 of them on screen.
Yes.
But we have to set the score straight. What is your favorite Iron Man suit and why?
And this is of across the MCU, not even
Across
just
the MCU.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, I remember having this a similar conversation with you offline about this, and I think the main reason why I chose the suit that I wanted is because I felt like the earlier suits were the best because it was more practical. They actually had actual suits, and they made it look so realistic and futuristic at the same time. And so if I had to choose one, I would have to choose the Mark VI. And
Ooh.
This is why. Because it tastes like coconut.
Really? Dang.
Yeah.
That was one very weird line in Iron Man 2.
It tastes like coconut and iron. But I just like how the Mark VI took advantage of the brand new element that he created. It's still unnamed, right? They never really named it.
Yeah, I forgot what they called it. I don't think they actually named it.
Right. And so I like how they obviously used that towards the end of the end sequence for Iron Man 2, but they also had him wearing the the Mark VI suit in the Avengers. And I just thought that, because of his fight with Whiplash with the Mark V, he improved that, in terms of like all that electricity, so that, spoiler alert for the Avengers, he was able to basically turn that weakness into a strength. That's all I'll say. But that's the reason why I do like the Mark VI the best.
Yeah, that was a
How
good
about you,
one, because
Jeremy?
it's that is a good one, because that's the only Iron Man suit with like the triangle chest also. So that makes
Yes.
it very unique.
Yeah, it's basically how he created that element, because it came in that triangle encasement or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was your favorite?
Well, for me, I would have to choose the one that he wore in Captain America Civil War, the
Ooh.
Mark 46. So 40 suits later is my suit. And I felt like it's such a cool looking design. I think if you go back and watch Civil War eventually, it's like a very red suit. It's like lots of red, very sleek looking suit, but it's still very like mechanical-esque compared to like if you go to Infinity War. I did not like the nanotech design type thing in Infinity War.
That's
I
probably my
still like,
least favorite one.
yeah, because in Iron Man suit needs to be very, robot-y, if that's a word, and mechanical. And I felt like the Mark 46 was like that last suit that had such a good design. It was like a Ferrari almost.
See that. And you know what? Kind of going back to like some of the older suits. I mean, it's all in the sound design and everything, with the whirring that you would hear, whenever he's like moving. It's just something that you don't really get with some of the, I guess, the newer stuff. You don't get that great sound design that they did use in the earlier films. And I think they still use that, right, in Civil War. I can't remember. I haven't
I
rewatched
can't
it.
remember actually. I didn't pay attention too much, but yeah, that is true. He's like RoboCop in freaking Iron Man 1. Whenever he turns,
Yeah.
it's like you can hear it. That was very cool.
Yeah. You kind of go back to that gold mirror scene. You really hear it because there's no dialogue, and all you hear is like the explosions and then him moving. So, I don't know. I've always been partial to the earlier Iron Man scenes. So,
Well, also in the early years of the MCU, they were trying to find their footing. Let's just say there was some restructuring they wanted to do. Yes, I'm referring to those early recasting of Terrence Howard and Edward Norton with Don Cheadle and Mark Ruffalo. And so we thought it would be fun to talk about and kind of speculate if we had to choose to keep Edward Norton as Bruce Banner / Hulk, or Terrence Howard as Rhodey / War Machine, and we can only pick one. If we can go back to 2008, 2010, or whatever, whenever they got recast, if we had to choose one to keep, which one would we pick?
man, this one was a tough one. I remember when we came up with this question, I was like, I don't know how I would really answer this. But the more I thought about it, I was actually more curious to see how Edward Norton would be if he would have remained Bruce Banner / the Hulk, because like I think you talked about a little bit earlier in the episode where with Mark Ruffalo, for the most part, he's kind of been like more comic relief, more action, kind of like kind of one tone or whatever. It's either funny or smashing things. And just rewatching The Incredible Hulk, one of the things that I did appreciate is the more introspective, just the way they made the Hulk, just more, just self-aware, just trying to, get by. I did love the kind of the internal struggle that Edward Norton did portray as Bruce Banner. And it would have been interesting to see if they would have kept that same Bruce Banner like character throughout the rest of the MCU and all of the Hulk appearances. And so to kind of contrast that with Terrence Howard, I feel like Don Cheadle was actually able to emulate everything that Terrence Howard did in the first Iron Man, and he was able to kind of pick up where he left off. And so I feel like if Terrence Howard would have stayed, it's kind of what Don Cheadle probably ended up giving us in all of War Machine's appearances and Rhodey's appearances. And so I feel like there's more of an intrigue with Edward Norton because it was a completely different take on Bruce Banner and the Hulk. And so, how about you, Jeremy?
Well, I think I would have to agree with you. Edward Norton, like especially in hindsight after Avengers Endgame with Smart Hulk, I know a lot of people didn't like Smart Hulk. Honestly, I didn't mind him too much, but it was a bit anticlimactic that his transformation into Smart Hulk was off screen as well. I thought that was a bit disappointing.
Yeah.
That sucks, man. It's like just off screen character development that they just kind of like brush off at the diner. I'm like, oh, that sucks. So
I know it was more jarring than anything when we were like, and I guess it made us relate with what Ant-Man or what's his name, Scott Lang, and Steve Rogers and Natasha, because they were just like looking at him like, what am I looking at right now? And that's kind of like the audience's perspective too.
Mm-hmm. But I did really like Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner in The Avengers 2012. Like he had that hidden anger in him still there. I don't think they played him so much for laughs as much, because I would have to, going back and watching The Incredible Hulk, I forgot how that there were funny moments in the movie. And actually, like, Edward Norton was actually pretty funny sometimes. I was surprised. He brought this, like, he definitely brought a different, he made Bruce Banner a little bit more dynamic than Bruce Banner is now, I think.
I agree.
But Terrence Howard, I do wish that War Machine did get like a solo movie to like flesh out his character a bit more. And if I had to choose one, I would probably just go with Don Cheadle. Like you said, I don't think his storyline would have been too different. Because, fun fact, they did reveal like 2 years ago that after Iron Man 2, they were planning on having a War Machine sequel or War Machine spin-off movie.
Like his own solo movie, right?
Yeah, and he would basically like almost go Jason Bourne, Ethan Hunt mode, go like away from the military and do his own thing. I thought, dang, that's pretty cool. But unfortunately, they never did that. I guess it just didn't fit into the MCU plans.
That would have been interesting because I could see that having more of a Winter Soldier vibe, just like you were talking about with the Jason Bourne thing, kind of rogue, like outlaw. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like military. So I mean, I'd be interested in watching that. I mean, I wonder if they would ever kind of revisit that, maybe even do maybe a Disney Plus movie, like direct to Disney Plus or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I would totally be down for that. So Disney, if you're listening, one, sponsor us. Two, get on some of these interesting characters that we want to see more of. But let us know if you're listening, guys, and you have an opinion on whether or not you should have Edward Norton or Terrence Howard. We want to know your opinions on it. So if you want to tweet us at Weekly Reel or on Instagram, comment on our YouTube. We don't have the URL yet, but you can type in the Weekly Reel podcast on YouTube and comment on our videos there. And what's our email again, Ken?
It's weeklyreelpod@gmail.com.
So yeah, if you want to email us there, what you think, if you like Edward Norton or Terrence Howard at that point, let us know. So with that, how about we take a quick break? Welcome back from the break. Earlier, we talked about the best moments from these three movies, but we thought it'd be fun to talk about the worst moments as well. We can start with the first Iron Man. So, Ken, do you want to pick your worst moments from Iron Man? I know it might be hard. I don't know.
Yeah, it was definitely hard. I actually don't really have one. it's to me, it's like one of my favorite movies. I can't pick a worst moment. I mean, I couldn't even nitpick. I was like trying to find one, and I couldn't find one. So, why don't you go ahead with
All
Iron
right,
Man?
all right. If I'm, because I agree with Ken, it's so hard to choose a worst moment. But if I was nitpicking, it would just be like the whole Ironmonger like targeting system at the very end final battle with Iron Man. And he's like, "Oh, you took out my targeting system. Let me do my villain monologue." Yeah, I was like, it's okay. That's very much a nitpick because that movie, I was trying to go through every scene, man. It was so hard.
You know what that reminded me of? It reminded me of Avatar.
Oh, with the robot?
Yeah, with the robot. Yeah, I just
Yeah.
thought it was fun. It was just funny. Anyway, it just came to my head right now.
But I know this might be also hard to choose a worst moment from the Incredible Hulk. So,
Oh man, this one was definitely so difficult. Just to narrow it down to just maybe one or two. I'm just kidding. The main one, though, the main thing that really bugged me about the Incredible Hulk was I just did not like or care for Blonsky, who was
Dude.
played by Tim Roth. I don't have anything against him as an actor, but I just didn't care for him. You know what? I mean, it's sad when you love it when the Hulk just literally kicks the living crap out of him at the end of that campus battle scene, and he just right into the tree. I just
Yeah.
was like, I let out a like a yell. I was like, yes. And I just thought it was pretty sad that Thunderbolt Ross, future Secretary of State in the MCU, I felt played a better villain than the main villain, Blonsky, who ended up turning into Abomination. And so, speaking of Abomination, an abomination, pun intended. The other thing that I really, really hated about the Hulk was just the fact that the CGI just looked really dated. And something early on, like when Ed Norton's, Bruce Banner got cut at the soda factory, and then the blood ends up like spilling. It just looked really hokey, and it just didn't look good at all. And then just the way they made Abomination look, it just, I don't know, it just made it really look really dated. And so those were just two of the few things that I did not like about the Incredible Hulk. How about you?
Yeah, I have to agree. The CGI though, like at that final battle in the Hulk, the animation was weird, man. Like they were fighting so fast and quick, and these are such like huge monster guys that it's like so much is going on, and it's
Yeah.
weird. Like the character models of the Hulk. Let's just say Hulk was like 720p, because honestly, he wasn't even like full HD. Like freaking Abomination was like 240p. I'm like, why couldn't they at least keep them consistent? I don't understand.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I really hated that last battle. You probably add that. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, Blonsky, I think, was a bit miscast. I feel like maybe they tried to cast someone that kind of with the stature of Ed Norton, Bruce Banner, but he's supposed to be like a military guy, so I don't know. He didn't seem that intimidating to me, just as normal guy.
I mean, if you compare him to like Steve Rogers, obviously you don't really want to compare him to Steve Rogers, but I felt like if they would have casted someone that had a little bit more on-screen presence, it would have been more believable. Dude, Tim Roth looks like he's like 5'2".
Especially next to Ross, dude.
Yeah, I know. And then they made it seem like he was a super soldier because of this of the serum, and I'm like, no, no.
Yeah. Another thing I didn't really like about the Incredible Hulk was the reveal of Dr. Stearns as Mr. Blue. Because I felt like in the beginning, it's like, oh, Mr. Blue, it's very espionage-esque. And then when you reveal him near the end of the movie, it's like this kind of mad scientist, kind of weird, and it just didn't work for me.
Yeah, the payoff was not good. I like how they set it up because it was mysterious. I mean, that tech didn't really age well. Kind of calling back to our awards, but it didn't really age well in terms of like the old DOS, like kind of going back and forth. And I like how they set it up, technology aside, but I just didn't like how they paid that off as well. That was a good.
Yeah.
One.
Well, there are some pretty bad moments in Iron Man 2 as well. Do you want to share some of your worst moments, Ken?
Yeah, I'll have a serious one and then a kind of a funny one, but the serious one, and this is like my huge, like other than the fact that I felt like it wasn't focused, there was too many things going on. The main one is that I felt like they wasted Ivan Vanko / Whiplash. I just love how they set up the character. They had a really good opening montage of him, like in the whole parallel with him creating his own version of the arc reactor tech. And I just like how they set it up. And then they just ended up wasting him. The fact that they had him partner up with Justin Hammer, I did not like that. And the most egregious thing about wasting this character is like they built him up. He had the look. He looked badass. And then at the end, literally, he shows up and then he literally gets defeated in a minute. And I just felt it was so, I don't know, it was just underwhelming. And I just felt like it was a huge waste. So that was like my main, one of my main gripes with Iron Man 2. The other one, just wasn't a fan of Justin Hammer's dance moves, man. Like when he came out in the Hammer Expo. Oh my goodness, it was just so cringy. And I was just like, oh my goodness, what am I watching? And the fact that it kept going. I mean, okay, I can maybe see like one shot. I could have tolerated that, but it just kept going. And I know he was trying to, do that whole like Tony Stark the Stark-esque Expo thing, his version of it. It just it was so cringy. So those were like my two worst moments in Iron Man 2. How about you?
Well, first, I just want to say, I want my board.
My board.
He kept saying that so many times in that movie.
I love that. Yeah, it was so different too because I think he just ad-libbed that. He just made character choices. Yeah, that
was good. I like that though. But if he just avoided Justin Hammer, that would have been better. I felt like.
I agree.
But my worst moments of Iron Man 2, I think like. I would have to say that argument between Tony and Pepper in the office. Like Pepper is now the boss, and he brought strawberries for her. And even though Pepper is allergic to strawberries, and like they just keep arguing and talking over each other. I'm like, who wrote this? Like, who wrote this part? And I know there was like a writer's strike, like a year before or something like that. Maybe that affected it, but. Like that was not a good scene because their relationship was so endearing in the first movie that the second movie was like, why is their relationship just kind of annoying now? That was not good. That was not a good moment. My second moment though would have to be the Rhodey and Tony fighting at the house party. I think it was pretty cool to have like these Iron Man suits fighting against each other, but I thought they should have played it a little bit more serious, considering what was happening. They really played it for like laughs. And I thought it should have been a much more serious moment, especially if that was like the first action sequence between two like fully fledged Iron Man suits. I thought, yeah, that moment, that sequence should have been better.
You know what? I kind of got to disagree with you a little bit. I actually like that scene a little bit more than, probably a lot more than you did. I mean, I just liked it in general just because obviously you got to remember where Tony was at that time. Like he was already kind of depressed with him dying. I mean, his blood toxicity level was like really, really bad at that point. And, he was drunk already. And he was already like, he wasn't taking anything seriously. And so it was a cry for help. I think if they would have played it serious, it definitely wouldn't have been Disney. And I think that would have, that had a probably a huge hand into why they went that route. I mean, yeah, it would have been nice to have it more like an actual like battle scene a little bit. I don't know about necessarily like super serious, but I felt like it could have been a little bit more serious, just like you said. I think there could have been a happy medium where it could have played a little bit better. I could see what you're saying, but I think that's the reason why they went that route, was because Tony was already like drunk, and then Disney.
Yeah, that's true. They can't focus too much on the alcoholism and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But you know what's great about the MCU, Ken?
What is great?
It has so many great characters, and I think there's some great characters out there that don't get as much love as they should, and I think they're pretty underrated. So, Ken, do you think there's any underrated characters out there in these 3 movies?
Yes, if I had to pick a non-main character in any of these first 3 movies, I would have to pick Howard Stark, who was played by, what was it, John Slattery, right?
Yeah.
And here's why. I mean, the old footage was pretty cool to be able to watch in the beginning of that Stark Expo, and Tony was able to throw it to him. But then later on, it was the inspiration of seeing Howard Stark, basically talking to Tony in basically the great beyond, from beyond the grave, because obviously Howard's already dead at this point. And I just love the quote that Howard Stark had during that old footage. And basically I'll pick it up where he kind of gets to the point, and he goes, "This is the key to the future. I'm limited by the technology of my time, but one day you'll figure this out. And when you do, you will change the world. What is and always will be my greatest creation is you." And he's talking about Tony Stark. And I just thought that whole inspiration that he gave to Tony, and just the validation, because I think when he was alive, they didn't really have the best relationship. And just to be able to hear that from beyond the grave was definitely inspiring. And I felt like it took Tony to like another level. So that is my underrated character. Jeremy, what is your underrated character with these 3 movies?
I think my underrated character has to be from the first Iron Man, and it's Jensen, man. Jensen made Tony Stark who he was, I guess who he is today, but basically transformed him into Iron Man, helped him transform into Iron Man. And just his banter with Tony Stark was pretty awesome, talking about his family. But then when he's on basically that when he runs through the caves with his AK just shooting at the ceiling, and he gets shot himself, and then he's like, "I'm gonna see my family now, Stark." I'm like, "No,
man, that
Jensen.
Got me.
Jensen, why?" And so it's like there was some man tears shed right there, and Jensen, man, unsung hero. They don't really mention him again except for Iron Man 3. I feel like they should have mentioned him again in Endgame, but that just means he's underrated.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of the underrated scenes, especially in the first Iron Man, but in all of the MCU, was like the whole dialogue between Jensen and Tony, and you could see Tony developing as a character from obviously is in the beginning part of the movie, and it basically set up who he would become. And I agree with you. Jensen has just been probably the most underrated character. I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah. Well, the MCU brought so many great heroes to the big screen, but I do remember that Marvel did have a problem with villains, though. Villains early on were kind of hit or miss. But who do you think is the best villain in the first 3 movies?
To piggyback off of that, I really had a hard time with this category. Best villain, I'm actually gonna throw a curveball at you. I thought the best villain was Thunderbolt Ross.
What? Really? Dang.
Yeah, you know what, that whole monologue thing, yeah, it's probably one of the, if you had to nitpick about Iron Man, wasn't a huge fan of that. I of Ironmonger,
Mhm.
but yeah, and then I feel like with Iron Man 2, they had the potential to have like one of the best villains. They set it up perfectly, but they just didn't deliver with Ivan Vanko. And man, it would have been him actually, but the fact that they screwed it up by just literally killing him off after a minute,
Mhm.
after what his drones lasted way longer, right?
Yeah, dude, like they were fighting those drones for a while and then freaking Ivan Vanko shows up. He's like, "I want my board," and then he dies.
I know. And so, I mean, I really wanted to pick him. I really did, but I just couldn't, just the way they just messed it up. And so by default, I got to pick Thunderbolt Ross. I just felt like he was a better character in terms of playing the villain role, I mean, even though he was more of like kind of in the middle. But the fact that they had him, he's just got that screen presence. Kind of reminds me a little bit of oh my goodness, and I'm forgetting what his actual name is. The guy who plays J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh, shoot, what's his name? He was
He
he was
made a
also Jim Gordon. He was in Whiplash. He was
yeah,
uh
that
J.K.
guy. What,
Simmons.
J.K.
J.K.
Simmons. Thank
Simmons.
you, thank you. I feel like he's got that presence, like he's on screen, and I felt like Thunderbolt Ross has that it factor, and I was so glad that they brought him back in Civil War and moving forward as Secretary of State Ross. And so when I saw him again in Civil War, and then now they had him in what Infinity War. Did he make an appearance in Endgame? I forgot.
I don't think so, from what I
Yeah, I'm
remember.
not sure, but anyway, he's going to be in Black Widow whenever that comes out, and so they obviously think he was worth bringing him back, and so by default, I got to go with Thunderbolt Ross in a little bit of a stunner. So, who was your best villain in these first three movies?
Well, for me, I have to choose Ironmonger, Obadiah Stane, just because he was like, well, I didn't like Abomination. That was pretty clear from earlier. Justin Hammer, he was okay. He tried to be like anti Tony Stark, didn't really work. Like you said, you pointed out Vanko. And Ross, he for me, he was kind of a villain, but not really.
Yeah,
So I would have to go with Obadiah Stane. Just he was a friend to Tony Stark, but he like just basically backstabbed him, even though he gave him pizza. I think it was Joe's Pizza. I think all
yeah.
the way from New York.
Oh, it's so
Because
good.
that sounds good right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, getting hungry. Because and the donut scene in Iron Man 2, by the way, those donuts.
Oh, dude. Yes. Ooh.
All right, but that we'll save the food for next week. Hint, hint. But yeah, I would have to go with Obadiah Stane, and his Ironmonger was almost like the template. I feel like for the Hulkbuster.
Ooh. Good point. Forgot
Yeah,
about
so
the
I would go with
Hulkbuster.
Ironmonger. So yes, there were some decent villains early on, but do you know who appears most in the MCU, Ken?
I don't know who.
Well, the man is Stan Lee. So Stanley's just so iconic in the MCU, and we kind of wanted to basically honor him by choosing his best cameo in these three movies. And also, we might talk about the best non-Stan cameo. So,
No,
what
definitely
do
got
you
to do
think,
that.
Ken?
Well, before I get into my favorite Stan Lee cameo, I gotta say R.I.P. to Stan Lee. I have a special connection with Stan Lee, very minor one, but me and him share the same birthday, December 28th. So, Stan Lee, wherever you are, dude, thank you so much for everything that you did for us these many decades. And so, my favorite Stan Lee cameo has got to be the first one, even though it was 1A for me, the Larry King. I literally have to do a double take to see if that was actually Larry King. I actually thought it was pretty funny. It's just got to be the first one, just because you're on the red carpet. Tony's just making that surprise entrance, and he goes, "Hey, what's up, Hef?" and he turns around, and you see Stan Lee's familiar face, and so that's definitely got to be my favorite one. What was your favorite Stan Lee cameo?
My favorite Stanley cameo probably has to be in The Incredible Hulk. At least out of these three movies, it has to be in the Hulk. I think just that the narration going over his cameo, where it's like, someone got the soda and had a little bit too much kick in it, and just his reaction is like, "Whoa!" I thought, I'm like, dang, they have to kill Stanley and the Hulk. I thought that was a good one.
Yeah, definitely. And then talking about non-Stanley cameos, my favorite one, only because I'm kind of a fan of this character. I mean, I watched him in Silicon Valley, but Martin Starr is just a young Martin Starr. Actually, he looks really young in this. It's a scene where, another random cameo, Lou Ferrigno. I mean, can't really choose him because he was in the first Hulk one. But anyway, Ed Norton bribes Lou Ferrigno, his character, with pizza, but he still has an extra pizza. And so, like, literally to get access to the lab equipment, he bribes a young Martin Starr with pizza so that he can access the database. And so actually there was one bit of research that I did. I actually read somewhere that Kevin Feige confirmed that the character of Martin Starr is actually the same character in Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home, Mr. Harrington, the teacher, right?
Teacher, yeah, dude. It's like he was at a university. Makes sense, man.
Yeah. So I just thought it was pretty cool that they made that connection. So he went from, kind of pulled his own Thunderbolt Ross, where appeared really early in the MCU and then just made a return like later on, much later on. So what was your favorite non-Stan Lee cameo?
Well, this might be kind of random, but there was like this quick cameo for Olivia Munn in Iron Man 2. She played like the reporter in Iron Man 2. And I think that, like, at that point in time, 2010, I think she was like on Attack of the Show on the G4 channel, right?
Yes.
And I don't know why I was too young to be watching that? I don't know. But there was like, they always talked video games on there. And I'm like, hey, look, it's the girl from Attack of the Show. And I was like, that's pretty crazy. And she plays Psylocke in the X-Men Fox universe. Yeah. So I thought if they bring the X-Men back to the MCU, who knows? Maybe she can be cast again. And it's like, oh, she was in the MCU all along. Because apparently they keep doing that.
You hear that, Disney? Please bring back Olivia Munn.
Yeah,
please bring her back.
Just bring her back, and we'll have the X-Men.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of her on G4 TV as well, and then I later watched her in that HBO show called The Newsroom. Mixed reviews on the show, but it was always nice watching Sloane Sabbath, aka Olivia Munn. But I digress.
Well, I know we're talking about the early years of the MCU, Ken, but we are currently at a point in time that the last MCU movie was Spider-Man Far From Home, right? Am I right on that?
Yes, it is Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah, and we're currently waiting for Black Widow to be released. So, which one are you anticipating the most in the MCU? The 10 Rings, She-Hulk, the next Hulk appearance, or a possible Iron Man replacement?
Ooh, man, yeah, this was one of the topics that I had a hard time with. But the more I thought about it, the thing that I'm looking forward to the most is seeing and revisiting the 10 Rings. And here's why. First of all, I'm still partial to Tony Stark. He's still my favorite Avenger or character in this whole MCU. And so just to bring back the 10 Rings and, how everything kind of ties in with Tony Stark. And I think we'll still do that even after his death. I just think I'm just looking forward to seeing where they take that. And I think it would be pretty cool to be able to see if rumors are true, if we do actually see the actual Mandarin, not Trevor Slattery, not Trevor Slattery in Iron Man 3,
Ben
but the
Kingsley.
actual Mandarin in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And so, and the last thing that I kind of want to bring up is, I think, just being Filipino and Asian in general, I just think it'd be pretty cool to finally see an Asian superhero in the MCU in Shang-Chi. So that's why I'm looking forward to the Ten Rings the most. How about you?
Well, yeah, Samu Liu, I believe his name is. He was. We watched Wong Fu Productions on YouTube. He's worked on some other projects with them.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, Asian represent, man. Let's go Shang-Chi.
Yeah, we gotta definitely support that for sure. We gotta support our peeps.
Yeah. But since Ken talked about the Ten Rings, I think I'm anticipating the next Hulk appearance the most. Because the Smart Hulk was a bit underwhelming. I thought it was going to be pretty cool, but unfortunately it kind of wasn't. Kind of a bit disappointing. So I'm wondering how basically Kevin Feige and the MCU will react to that feedback from Smart Hulk, if they will like continue that path or maybe even backtrack. I'm not sure. So I'm kind of anticipating where they're going to go with Hulk. Because I would really like to see him be a more dynamic character again, kind of like in the Incredible Hulk. But who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he'll ever have his own standalone movie again, but to be able to kind of have like a movie where he teams up with maybe one other character similar to like Thor Ragnarok, where he was featured pretty prominently, I'm kind of curious to see where he ends up as well and where they take his character. Like with the new direction that they obviously went into after Avengers Endgame.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've come to the point in our podcast where we're going to play that fun game that we started last week. Ken, we're really we have a running tally on basically guess the Rotten Tomatoes score, and Ken is up 1-0. He's beating me right now.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to guess the Rotten Tomatoes score of all three movies, and we're going to start with Iron Man. So, Ken, do you have a possible guess of Iron Man?
Yes, I do. And just so that everyone knows, we mentioned it last week. We actually came up with these scores beforehand, before we recorded tonight. So to answer your question, Jeremy, I am thinking that Iron Man scored a 92. How about you?
Dude, that's so close to mine. How can we keep guessing so close? I chose 93% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh my goodness, that's so crazy. So let's go ahead and look that up.
We're going to check it live. Yeah, we're going to check it live. Let me see this real quick. Iron Man. It is, drum roll. Oh yeah, 94% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, are you serious?
Just, it's so close, man.
How did that happen? Where I guessed 92, you guessed 93, and it's actually 94.
94.
That's pretty crazy. Okay.
All right.
Well, for Hulk, I'm thinking a 68.
I put 66.
Are you?
Yeah.
This is not planned out, listeners. This is not planned out. We came up with this on our own.
We did not plan this at all. So I'm going to look that up. The Incredible Hulk.
Drum roll, please.
Here we go. Oh, what the heck? Okay, I don't know how we're going to break this, but it's at 67%.
You know what we could do? I'll give this one to you because we'll go with Price is Right rules. If there's a tiebreaker, whoever goes under gets it. Because unless you want to go the other way.
I think we should just leave it blank.
How about if we both get the point?
No score.
How about if we both get the point?
Both get the point. Okay, so So technically, what's the score now?
It's 2-2.
2-2.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Dude, what's your score for Iron Man 2? I did not
Iron
expect
Man
that.
2. All right. Well, okay. This is a strictly guess because I want to win. Because I want to win.
Mhm.
I'm going with 64.
64. Dang. Because dude, they were nice. I feel like I guess 72%.
Really? Okay.
I feel like because it was an Iron Man movie, I feel like they were going to be nice on it. But I could be wrong. They could
don't
be like
know.
friggin' Spider-Man 3.
I'm going the other way because I feel like a lot of people were disappointed coming off of Iron Man 1. But go ahead. Drum roll, please.
Oh, sorry, Ken. 73% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I overthought that one.
Because, like, honestly, going back, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. I like Iron Man 3 more than Iron Man 2, and I actually think 73% is a little high. I would probably put it at 60 something, like you said.
Yeah. Well,
But
I mean, I would give it
yeah.
I'm sorry. I would give it a higher score than 64. I was going for the win.
Because I was thinking like in Rotten Tomatoes score, like I feel like at those early stages they were pretty nice. And I just had to remember, okay, I think the lowest rated Rotten Tomatoes score is for Thor Dark World. Mm-hmm. And I think I don't know how, I forgot how low it is.
Well, don't reveal that because we're going to eventually visit Thor Dark World on a future episode.
Unfortunately. Yeah, we're gonna have to. So yeah, we're gonna have to revisit that at some point.
All right.
But that just makes the score me up by 3-2. Ken,
man, turn the tables on me. To quote the great Michael Scott from The Office, how the turntables.
I still gotta finish The Office, by the way. If anyone knows that, I think I'm on season 5.
You're like halfway there.
Yeah. Well, that's how Rotten Tomatoes rated the movies, but we do have our own rankings for these movies. Ken, do you want to rank them from best to worst? Because we are going to keep track of all these MCU movies, our rankings, right?
Yes, definitely. We're going to rank. I still haven't found out how many exactly, but it's 23 or 24, one of the two. And we'll definitely get to the point where we're ranking all of them from best to worst. And so to answer your question, and I remember upon first rewatch, I really did hate Iron Man 2. Like, I really hated it with a passion just because coming off of Iron Man 1 and all the expectations that it set, I don't know if it was fair to compare it to the first Iron Man, but I mean, it's only natural, right? And I felt like I always knocked Iron Man 2 for it. But getting caught up in watching all of the MCU movies and just being caught up and just doing this latest rewatch, I have to rank it right behind Iron Man. So I would have to go Iron Man 2, and The Incredible Hulk. Even though there are certain parts of that I like Incredible Hulk over Iron Man 2, but overall, I just don't really care about The Incredible Hulk as a character as much, and that's why I have it ranked last so far. How about you?
Yeah, like mine is the exact same. Iron Man 2, and Hulk. But I think it's mostly because I think just watching Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man, or as Iron Man, is I think a little bit more entertaining. Not saying that The Incredible Hulk was like really bad or anything, and not saying that Iron Man 2 is the best MCU movie, but they're definitely not like top tier, I feel like.
I agree.
So I guess we agree on our rank 3 ranking of these movies.
Yeah, I had a feeling that we would, but I just know that starting with the next one, this is where our rankings will definitely diverge, because there are times when I will rank it differently. So I'm kind of curious to see how our rankings develop over these next several MCU movies, whenever we do have an MCU related episode.
Yeah, because we're going to be talking MCU movies, I think, about once a month. And the next episode, or not next episode, but the next MCU episode that we do, would be Thor, Captain America, the First Avenger, and The Avengers 2012.
Yes. Looking forward
But
to it.
yeah, next week though, Ken, do you want to preview what's happening next week?
Yes. So for episode 3, we are going to go from a week, this week, where we watched films starring Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, and Jon Favreau, to covering a film for next week, episode 3, that stars Jon Favreau, Scarlett Johansson, and Robert Downey Jr. That's right. Next week, we are putting on our aprons and covering the 2014 film Chef. And you know what? As a foodie, it's definitely one of my favorite movies. It's definitely one of my most rewatched movies that I've recently watched. And I know for a fact that Jeremy still hasn't seen it yet. So
I have not seen it.
yeah. So how do you feel going into next week watching Chef for the very first time?
Dude, well, I'm ready to be hungry. I know that it's about food. I know there's a food truck in it. And just hearing it from like you and some of our other friends that it's like, oh, this so-and-so food looks so good. And, we're going to go a little bit different next week. I don't know what to expect really, but I'm excited that it's going to be a new movie that I haven't seen before. So I'm excited.
Yeah. And you know what? We'll explain more of that premise next week about just kind of expanding our horizons, watching new movies that we haven't seen. So we'll definitely explain that all next week in episode 3.
Exactly, because on the weekly reel, we're gonna share movies with each other, with you guys, and just experience new things in this magical world of movies. So, Ken, is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, just that you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at FreeKenA. That's at free_Ken_A. And that's, again, both on Twitter and Instagram. How about you, Jeremy?
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well at JP_flicks. Yeah, on both platforms. I'm pretty active, but if you want to catch my movie reviews, just look up my name on YouTube, Jeremy Pullen-Barrett, and that's where I'm most up to date. So
yeah, definitely check out his reviews. He's getting better with each review, and his production value is just getting really good. So please subscribe to his channel. Subscribe.
All right, man, it was a really fun time doing this and talking about this. All these MCU movies, 3 movies down, 20 or so more to go. I had a good time talking about the all MCU, Iron Man 2, Hulk. So yeah, we'll talk about the MCU about once a month until we got caught up, and hopefully they release Black Widow at some point and the Eternals.
Yeah, hopefully this year.
Hopefully this year. So man, I really want to see Black Widow. I was so hyped, but I guess we'll just have to wait. So until then, stay tuned for next week's episode on Chef. We'll talk about it more then. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week on The Reel.